X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach, and I've been thinking about this, Adam, since Jordan D. White was on not too long in the past.
Yeah.
He made fun of the fact that the stories are not ranked alphabetically, which is true, but I have retroactively come up with a no prize to beat him on that, in that we are ranking every story across the alphabet, but we are not ranking them in alphabetical order. I think that is a good compromise here.
That's fair. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me.
I don't know why that was my lead-in. I'm going to be very real with you.
I thought you were going to try and work the letter V in there somehow, and I was confused as to where you were going with that. But
we can pretend that's what I was doing.
Let's pretend that the letter V was in that little segue, and let's introduce our very special guest. It's Vita Ayala.
Hello. Hi, y'all.
Hey.
How are you doing, Vita?
Doing as well as can be expected, right?
We've been doing this just for a world history check. It is Tuesday the 12th as we are recording this. Mm-hmm. So anything we say and any cheerfulness we have is based on that date and that date alone.
You gotta fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, we came into this year with such optimism, and then the last episode we were like, oh boy. Anyway, Vita, I feel like we haven't seen you since February. Is that accurate? That is probably the last time we saw
right.
and or talked to you, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's true. That is wild that we were at the first and last convention together.
Yeah, of all time. It's ridiculous. But for those of you who don't know, Vita is currently the writer of New Mutants. They're the upcoming writer of Children of the Atom. They were on Prisoner X. What else? The Wilds. Just so much
very
stuff.
excellent episode of Marauders. A Stone Cold classic.
And Ten of Swords.
And Ten of Swords, right?
Yeah, they snuck me in. They snuck me in for Ten of Swords.
I'm glad they did.
We'll be getting to that in a second. But no, Vita's been doing some incredible stuff. They've been on the show back a couple years ago, and then on some con episodes. So go check those out. But now we're going to talk about New Mutants, which the first issue has the 14th issue, but the first that you're writing has just come out recently. Excited to be back into the whole X-Men realm?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was pretty intimidated following both Jonathan and Ed, as writers on that book, and everyone else that has ever written New Mutants, right? But most recently. So I was a little scared that people would be like, "You're not my dad," but people were actually really nice about it.
Well, we'll definitely get to that. But first, we had an important question that we did want to address that is related to New Mutants.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Vita, if you look in the chat, there's something, and I do want you to answer. How do you feel about this picture of the Best Teen Warlock dressed like Kid Vid from the Burger King Kids Club?
I love it so much. I saw that on Twitter, which I've been off of Twitter for a while, but I just happened to check today because of this, and I saw that, and I had a full body flashback to those, like, the videos you would get when you, like, gave it enough points or whatever. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Zach, I forgot to tell you, I've actually found a PVC Kid Vid figurine in a toy box somewhere in my house the other day when I was cleaning. I was like, where did this come from?
That art, by the way, is by Jen Overstreet. Jen's
So
a
good.
great artist. Go check out their stuff. But I happenstance saw that today. It happened to come across my timeline as I had saved that 5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh no, this is the right attitude to bring to this podcast." But it does.
I might get it tattooed, maybe.
Oh yeah. That's a full backer
good.
right there.
Absolutely.
That's a Ben
I was thinking
Affleck.
a neck piece. Just like
Okay.
right here.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
that would be a good neck piece, yeah. But that is Warlock. He is a teen eternally, and you're writing a lot of teens and young adults in your books. What is it about teens that makes you want to write about them, or where do you find the energy or the excitement about writing young adults like that?
I feel like for me, there's this kind of feeling of full potential with people in that kind of like teen to new adult age, where it's just like your life is ahead of you. You could be anything, and that kind of chaos and terror that you feel is still very like fresh in my mind, even though I'm in my mid-30s. But second adolescence. No, but that kind of feeling to me is really appealing. And I think that as we get older, we forget that real visceral fear that propelled us. I'm a emotion-based writer, and I feel like the idea of infinity as a writer is really terrifying, right? You open a blank document and you could do anything with it. So for me, that's kind of how the energy that I channel when I'm doing teen stuff and like new adult stuff. Also, they're just like, you can just get away with so much wild like stuff. I'm trying not to curse. Wild stuff when you're that age that you just can't anymore. Not even by virtue of manners, but just because like your body doesn't do stuff like it used to. Like I try to just put myself back into a place where I could get off of the couch and not grunt. Like that's I'm trying to manifest that for myself. To keep young, I write about teenagers and new adults.
I like that. It's kind of like a vampire,
That's right.
Great.
That's right.
Vita, you mentioned that you're doing this kind of soft relaunch of the book and taking it in what I would say is a pretty distinctly new direction. How do you go about doing that and still honoring, what John and Ed were doing before you jump on, or is it just, hey, take the wheel and go in your own new direction, put your own spin on it?
Well, both of them were really supportive of me just doing whatever. Like they were like, if you want to pick up threads, great. If you don't, break from it and do what you need to do. And Ed being, he's one of my first friends in comics. He's one of my best friends in comics. I love him to death. And then of course, Papa Hickman's great. So for me, I had some questions about Krakoa, and I thought that the New Mutants book would be a really great place to explore those questions. I'm also a question-driven person and writer. I felt like we were seeing a lot of Krakoa and mutants interacting with the world in different ways. We have Marauders where they, pirates, but also privateering stuff and medicine and all that stuff. We had, all these other books that dealt with the interactions of humans and mutants, or of aliens and mutants, or like whatever. And I was like, okay, but like, what about the map? Look at all this stuff on the map. What is there? Like, I want to know what this is. Like, what happens if someone wanders into this area? And, Jonathan was like, all right, have fun.
I do love that you're pressing for answers there,
I don't know why they let me in that room. I'm real crazy. I'm real wild. I'm real feral. We all are, though, I guess. Every single writer in the writer's room is just feral in their own way.
We've gotten the opportunity to talk to most of them. There's a couple that have still slipped through our cracks yet, and we are we're coming for you. But but I have gotten the feeling that all of them are everyone feeds off of each other and has built a sense of community there that is very interesting to see in comics, where things can be a little isolated at times.
Absolutely. And I think that is what allows us to work in this current paradigm so well. It's all about, community and communication and interconnection and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it would be possible for us to do if we weren't literally communicating at every second of every day. If I go check, the X Slack, there's just like a million notifications, and it's everybody. There's no one person that talks more than the other, which is really nice. We also much like Sailor Scouts, weirdly become like the roles that we've written. Like we're just slowly like Uncle Jerry is very like, oh, I've been hearing this on the streets, and I'm like, you're inside. How do you know all this? Like, what's going on? He's like, oh, he's a pirate. He just goes out and he gets information and he does crime. That's great. Like, we just slowly have become. I don't know, but he's the most connected person in the room. Like, he really is. Like, he just knows about everything, and I find that really fascinating. So, to me, in my mind, he dresses like Kate, like Captain Kate. That's who he is. He goes.
I'll tell you. Last night, my wife and I were watching the TV show New Girl that we have just decided we are going to rewatch, and Brian Posehn showed up in there, and I was like, "Hey, Kaya, did you know that I know somebody who knows that dude?" And she was like, "I don't care. Why would that matter?" I was like, Jerry's really connected, and I know someone who knows Jerry, and shut up.
Listen, Jerry's everywhere.
Oh my God.
Jerry knows all. It's
No,
can
picking up. Oh,
wait, hold on.
yeah.
I gotta plug this because Jerry actually did tweet about this. Were you part of? I saw a tweet just a few hours before we started talking about Russell Dauterman dropping Hellfire Gala looks in the Slack.
Oh.
Were you present for this?
I've been off of the internet a little bit, but
Okay.
I was poked by Leah, and she was like, "Go check the Slack." So like I did, and I was like, "Holy sh! Y'all are not ready. Y'all are not ready."
Okay.
See, I've got some Russell Dauterman art just over yonder, and it is of X-Men. So I am very excited to see what happens here. I've noticed that in promoting things, y'all, and I don't know who started it, but y'all have decided to just kind of drop things like they're common knowledge. Like, oh yeah, Al Ewing's showing up. What's up with this? Or Cy Spurrier? Or Russell Dauterman's drawing something? What could this be? And we notice is the thing.
We're trying to have fun. We all want to have fun.
Jumping off of you pulling into this book, into New Mutants specifically, you kept some threads for sure that were really interesting. You've let others be completed. As someone with no less than 4 pictures of Glob Herman within arm's reach, there's some that I wish you would have pulled back up, but it's fine, and we're going to accept that. But I do love obscure characters, and you pulled a fast one on me. Hey, what's up with Rainboy?
Hey!
From like 4 issues of comics that I don't personally care for, being in your cast? How did you settle on Rainboy?
So, 2 things. One, I too love Glob very, very much. Actually, Ed is the reason that I love Glob. He made me a Glob believer. And when he was, when we were transferring the book over, he made me promise that Glob would be okay, and so I've kept that promise. Our boy Glob is all right. And who's to say that he won't show up later? Anyway, so that's 1. 2, so tiny bit of context, or background, I guess. Leah Williams, who is
Amazing.
One of my favorite people in the whole world, absolutely incredible, high-key genius, is a database person. And she's is in the middle of perpetually constructing a database of all of the mutants that exist.
Whoa.
And she is doing a thing where she's breaking them down by different demographics, powers, location, food that they like, whatever. Like, there's a million different ways that you can search that. And so whenever we need a mutant that can do something specific or is from somewhere specific or whatever, we have this great resource that Leah's building. And so there's a small, friend group of characters in New Mutants that I kind of assembled that kind of share some stuff in common with each other. And so when I was looking to put together that group with that thing in common, there was a bunch of options, and I just thought that Rainboy was adorable. I was like, this kid is so cute. I really, I don't know, an older sibling. I have a bajillion younger siblings, and a bunch of younger cousins, and nephews. And I just love like adorable kids. I'm just like, put them in everything. That's why I love Gabby. I'm like, put her in everything. Just give me all Gabby all day. So I wanted to bring together a group of kids who didn't necessarily have a lot of like time in the spotlight. It's hard when you have a billion mutants, right?
Right.
18 million. But we're like easy to endear people to. Like, I wanted people immediately to be like, yeah, I like those kids. Like, those kids are great. And I don't know. I saw Rainbow and I read up on him and I was like, I immediately love you. So that's what we're going to do.
I think I want my hands on this database.
It's
Did you know
bananas.
about
I
that,
think
Zach?
I'm only... No, and I think I'm only a little bit upset that I didn't. But it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I'll send Leah a nastygram after this, and everything will be okay.
Be nice. Maybe she'll share. It's really
maybe.
cool. And she includes like links to their various like informational pages as well as like whatever the breakdowns are. Like,
Wow.
It's bananas.
That's an
Wow.
insane person thing to do.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and
Sounds-
it's cross-referenced because it's like this, it's bananas. Incredible. I learned so much just from being on there. I was like, oh, I need someone that fly. They can fly? They can fly too? What is going on?
And that's how you got Jimmy on your team then, I'm sure.
100%. Actually, when I was talking about team construction for the main team, I had two concerns. One of them, I was like, I want as many of the OG New Mutants as I'm allowed to have. Just give them to me. Just give me. But also I was like, oh, I need like someone that is like peers with them, but not part of their nonsense. Also, like
Right.
someone who can come in and be like, all of what you're doing is super messy, or whatever. Be like that. Like the friend that is not always involved in your shenanigans, so has like a different perspective.
Right.
And Jordan actually was like, what about Proudstar? And I was like, I'm putting him in short shorts. If you say I can do that, then I'll take him. And there you go.
I think that's a really interesting role for him because he has been part of the New Mutants since like the first year of that book. But he was either, an antagonist or
Right.
a supporting character through the Hellion stuff. And then he jumped on with some of them on X-Force, and some of them jumped back and forth with that. But that was always that was never the original New Mutants all getting together and having fun. Like Magic and him were never like on the same thing. And
But she
Probably
feels
the
more
breakout character.
synonymous with New Mutants. And I think that her feral energy very much kind of puts her into... And also her age, right?
Right.
Like, she's just so much younger than... I don't know. Relative ages is something that I have to fist fight Jordan about on a daily basis. So, like...
Oh, you too!
Really?
It's all in we do it because we love each other. But I'm like,
Yeah.
they're old, and these people are not old. This don't make sense. He's like, shh, no, don't worry. Wolverine's 15. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm out. He's
Now-
good. He's a troll.
Speaking of deep continuity dives, one of the characters that I have probably spent way too much time, especially last year, digging deep on is Mr. Amal Farouk, the Shadow King. Now, he mysteriously appeared in a blink and you miss it cameo in X-Men Empire. Were you part of that shenanigan? of him
I
sort of
wasn't.
just bing.
I wasn't, because I think it was, I forget we I'm sure that this is public knowledge at this point, how
It
that
is.
was written.
Yes.
Okay. I never know what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, I think you guys talked about that.
I think so too.
Yep.
That wasn't in the section that I wrote. But we all immediately were like, oh, we gotta do something with that. That's real good.
I do believe it was Leah's section that had that one page
Yes.
at the end of issue 2.
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
Now, Shadow King has been my biggest question about Shadow King for the longest time, and especially when he popped up in X-Men Empire, is, well, if he is a multiversal like thing that inhabits mutants, is Amal Farouk actually a mutant? And I went through a huge continuity dive of every single one of his appearances to try and figure this out. I could not. And I opened your New Mutants and you answer this question right on the first couple of pages, or at least it appears that way. What inspired you to go back to Shadow King's roots and jump in there?
For me, just in general, as a person who likes stories, I am always a sucker for a good villain, or a good antagonist, not necessarily a villain. Mm-hmm. And I don't always need to know everything about why they do what they do, but for me, Shadow King, it was so nebulous that I was like, I really want to dive into that and kind of talk about what would lead the Farouk part of him to be where he is now. And I wanted to talk about, I mean, just in general with the book, right? But I wanted to kind of talk about trauma and the way that we, kind of curl up around that trauma to survive, and then what that does to us as we move forward in our lives and how we interact with others. And a little bit also I wanted to talk about like abuse and surviving abuse and that kind of stuff, which, is something that is really important to me as a person, but also, these mutants have been through a lot.
Yeah.
And these individual mutants have been through a lot. All of them have. Mm-hmm. But we've had the privilege with the New Mutants to watch them for their whole, mutant career, basically, right? Like, we've seen them grow. And I feel like, because of the pace of comics, we often have to, they just have to keep rolling with the punches. And so I wanted to go, all right, what does that mean for you as a person, though? Like, what does that do to you? And then with Shadow King, I was like, well, I don't think that has to be separate. That has to be a separate story. I think that can tie in together. What does it mean for someone to, how do you get to be the person that you are? The person that uses other people in the way that you do. What happened to you? And so that was just something that I kind of wanted to explore. Also, very inspired by your thread. I was like, yo, let's do this. No, I saw it. I say that, but I did actually see your thread after I'd already made plans, and I was like, the world wants it.
The world wants it.
The world wants it.
The world wants
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just, he's cool and he's scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited about it because, I just read the Claremont Anniversary special that came out. I guess as we're recording this, it comes out.
Yep.
Yeah. It came out last week.
It came out last week.
And he's obviously still very obsessed with the character. And yet I think the public's most recent exposure to the character has nothing to do with comics. Were you a fan of the Legion FX version of the character, and has that influenced the way that you want to work with the character as you go forward?
I'm a bad person. I only saw the first season, loved it.
Okay.
Super loved it.
Yeah.
But I know that it's Aubrey Plaza's character. Bless her.
You should maybe check out season 2 and see.
I'm a bad person. I haven't finished season 3.
I haven't either.
I know I'll love it.
I want to desperately. But I got into a mode where I wasn't intaking a lot of stuff, which I'm trying to change. But that show was brilliant. And it did this thing in the first season. I'm sure that it continued in, going beyond, that I found really fascinating, which was it layered answers. They led to more questions, but you were like, I don't know, I watched the first season and then I rewatched some of it again, and all of this stuff, on the rewatch, I was like, I see so much more. Like everything is more meaningful now. And I kind of want that to be something I incorporate into my storytelling. I've always found rereads to be really important to me, and so I always try and do stuff that will lead to cool stuff on the reread. But like with the Shadow King stuff, I wanted to be as clear as I possibly could, but then when you get to the end of it, I want you to reread it and be even sadder as you read it. That's my goal.
You're gonna make me feel bad about the Shadow King because I don't like that.
I like it.
I think
want
that
it.
he's I think that he is who he is right now, and you don't have to feel bad about him, you know, every time that he's gotten his butt whipped so far. But I think that what I want is for him to be a person. And I think that at the end of the day, we do empathize with people, even if they end up being bad people. Like we think, you know, I want you to get your comeuppance now, but I'm sorry that thing happened to you before, or like whatever. And so that's why I started, you know, and Annalise and I, my editor, and Rod too, like we've been in close communication, but Annalise and I especially, I was like, does this hit? Like, will people understand that this is important? And she was like, yes. All right, great. Let's do it from the beginning.
Well, I'll tell you, if you haven't seen season 2, Aubrey Plaza is fantastic as the Shadow King. Jermaine Clement does a really good job. But in season 2, Naveed Nagban plays a more Amal Farouk inspired version of the character. Like
So
he's got the round glasses.
Oh, nice.
And the little mustache. Like a tour de force performance.
All right,
So
I gotta.
As far
watch.
as just like pull up him giving a monologue, and
This is an excuse to watch it.
yeah, it's. I was nervous. It's like, well, I mean, Aubrey Plaza played, you know, Sexy Chaos Shadow King somehow.
I know. I was like, I feel weird about watching the show. I'm like, you're very good at what you do, but also, this is a Shadow King. This ain't right.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. But you did bring up Rod Reese, who is absolutely an incredible artist.
Amazing.
Phenomenal.
He was at C2E2, and I happened to be walking up to his booth as he was doing a commission, and I just got angry when I was seeing him just like, oh yeah, and then I do this, and I do this, and it's like, I understand that he puts hours and hours into his craft, and it's his entire life is doing this thing, and I've tried to draw stick figures like once a year, so it's fine that he's that talented, but I was like, it's not fair, you can't have that much talent in one body.
He's also super funny and also very kind, which is very important. But like his comedic timing is incredible. Oh my God. I would get pages back and just start crying with laughter. Like unlettered pages. It's just pure art. I'm like, oh, this guy's a genius. This guy's too good.
The demon kitten thing that he drew.
Sorry.
That set me off a little bit. I was like,
okay. In the script, I was like, it's his worst fear. I don't know, like a kitten, like a giant kitten or something, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, do whatever you want. And I was like, oh, he did the kitten. My thing, I cackled like a ugly witch about that. But my favorite thing was the one wolf in, 5 wolves out.
Yeah.
It made me laugh so hard.
I cannot emphasize enough how much I actually screamed in my chair in my basement as I was reading that. Because someone pulled that out of their hat.
Jordan, I can hear his hair turning gray every time someone talks about the 5 wolves. I was like, you gotta let me do it. He was like, please don't do it. I was like, I promise I won't do it on every page. Let me do it once.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's good to pull those things out. But Rod works in such an inspired way. You know, I gotta agree with Zach. Like watching him work and him floating between like watercolors and crayons, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You know, it's so exciting. But
He
as
paints
a writer
it.
working with him, is it something where you still feel like you have to rein him in, or is it the opposite where you feel like you can give him a lot of room to play on the page?
First of all, I don't know what it would look like to rein someone. Like, you don't call him in if you want to rein an artist in. Like, if you want to, like, that's he's the wrong man. Like, you gotta set him free and let him do what he's gonna do. What I try to do is give as much context for him as I possibly can. But he's someone where when I work with him, you know, I can do a page, and I still put a lot of information on the page, but I can like forego panel breaks. For example, I'll be like, this is the stuff that's happening on this page. Throw out what you don't like, emphasize what you really like. Just know that this particular thing should be big, or this is something important. And then he'll come back with all kinds of really cool stuff. Like, we've been doing a lot of synergy stuff. And so I've just been like, here's a list of cool synergies that we can do. Do a couple of them. And then he'll like, he'll throw something down on the page that is inspired. And I'm like, great, I could never have written that. I don't even know how to begin to describe it.
The amount of mutant team-ups that have been happening in these books, I feel like it's getting to be just a challenge to see who can one-up each other. Because there's the 5 and they're a resurrection machine, and then there's the 6 and they are a inter-realm teleporting machine, and then there's the 2 where Wolverine's getting thrown like a very, very small
mutant technology.
Classic Cannonball special.
Mutant technology.
Well, yes, mutant technology, but also I feel like that's the thing, and I know that Leah's talked about this a bunch, and Teeny's talked about this a bunch, so forgive me for parroting them. We're of a hive mind. But, the mutants have been denied community for so long. They're finally able to just be free in a way that they never have been. And part of that is because they were not allowed to be, but also it's just, they didn't really have room to test their limits. The X-Men in particular are heroes, right? So it's like, well, we don't want to damage things, and we don't want to hurt people, and we don't want to whatever. And so now they have a whole island where they could just go buck wild and just be like, what are the limits to my power as an individual? And then what does it mean to be a mutant? Oh, it means to be interconnected. Well, what are our powers when we combine and form this cool Captain Planet?
Now, identities and those kind of communities are something that have been pretty central to a lot of your work. Outside of X-Men, it's especially. I mean, and you're a Black Puerto Rican queer writer, and that's a lot of identities to be jumping on in a very cis straight white space like comics. And you have very elegantly, made no qualms about, hey, I want to tell stories about this in stuff like Livewire, for example. That's very much a story about an angry woman who is tired of being pushed around and tired of having her life taken, out of her control. You've expanded on some of that stuff in your previous work, like Prisoner X, for example. Is that something you want to continue to center in your stories with the X-Men? And are there different ways you want to expand on those themes?
For me, I think that, well, first of all, I think that comics, for me, were never a straight white space. Partially because I misidentified characters as not white, and also partially because my introduction to comics involved a lot of characters of color, including Storm and Bishop. But also, like, I read a lot of manga, like all of this stuff. I was like, oh, comics are just for everyone. And I grew up in New York City, so I'm very lucky in that way. So like all I went to predominantly brown and black schools, and everyone liked nerd stuff because we're nerds. It's a power fantasy, right? So like, who needs a power fantasy more than the people with less power? So I think I kind of just didn't, by the time I realized that I wasn't welcome, it was too late. I was already here. No, but I've always felt welcome, so I'm very lucky. But also, I think for me, the themes that I really want to explore in X-Men in particular are themes of, healing community, but also self-actualization, which I think is a thing that marginalized people, we worry about survival a lot, right? Mm-hmm, like these are the order of things that I need, and it's usually within the survival realm. And I want to go, no, let's push further. Let's talk about self-actualization. We deserve. That's what we deserve. And I think that is a kind of natural follow-up to the themes that I've already kind of been exploring in my work. And with characters like Danny Moonstar and like Karma and like Magic, even though they have all these really cool powers, like they have not really had the opportunity to self-actualize. And so that's what I want for them. That's what I want for all of them. That any character in the X universe that I touch, I'm like, what is your best self and how can we help you get there?
It's exciting, the ideas of, the X-Men aren't having their back against the wall 100% of the time now. It's not that they don't find conflict, but these are stories where, in the past, if the X-Men won, it was at great cost.
Right.
And if you look at Ten of Swords that just wrapped up, big whole line-wide thing. It's not that there was nothing bad that happened to the X-Men, but it was a pretty definitive win for everyone involved, including mutants who were opposed to the X-Men. Apocalypse got to go back and hang out with his family. It's a very good, happy story.
Ultimate wife guy.
Yeah, ultimate wife guy.
Ready to wreck the world for your wife guy.
I have been told that most of the people working on X-Men at this point in time are quote unquote wife guys.
That's true.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see.
I feel like we've had a lot of stories already where like you win at great cost, and I think for me, I don't think there's anything wrong with those. I think that those are very important stories. I think that we do have to talk about consequences and sacrifice because that's what it is to be alive. But also, I think that we want to tell stories where we also make it clear that wanting good things for yourself and your family is not bad, and you shouldn't have to sacrifice everything. You get to win. And it should feel good. Like, yes, it will be hard and, there will be blood, sweat, and tears, but also it's okay. Like, you can do the right thing and also, come out winning. Like, you don't have to sacrifice everything all the time. And I feel like with superhero books in general, that's a hard one, right? You want to push these heroes to the limit, but we're allowed to just be like, you did the right thing and you get a reward for that. Like, here you go.
Now, speaking of a reward, in March, we are finally going to get our hands on Children of the Atom, announced way back in February of 2020. So I know we're very excited about that. We got a lot of listener questions about that as well. Has the pandemic and the change in the publishing schedule changed anything that we're doing with the book? Or are we still getting pretty much the same story that you had intended from the start?
It's mostly still the same story. There have been a few changes. But I think what was important for us for that story in particular was to stay true to it as much as we could. There are two things that I personally keep in mind as I'm writing any particular monthly book, whether it's a miniseries or an ongoing, and that's the impact when it releases chapter by chapter, right? The issues, and then the longevity of it, like the whole of the story. And so I think that what we wanted to do with it is make sure that we preserve the feeling that we had before. And that meant mostly not changing the central parts of the story, the conceits and kind of the complications. But some of the details had to change. It's a year. So there were things that happened and things that had to change. Absolutely. But the way that I feel like it will be read when all is said and done, still make that work, I think.
Awesome. I'm very excited to not have to talk around this book and to actually just talk about it.
Looking forward to it. for sure.
Same.
I'm sure you are too.
Now,
Yeah, I
Now,
mean,
New Mut-
it's. God, I've been working on it for over a year and a half, more than that, 2 years. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Time is a flat circle, so I'm not sure. But I will be glad when it is out, because I think also I want people to be able to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it, but also I don't want people to feel any sort of pressure. And I feel like the anticipation has been so much that people are just like, like it's either going to be the best thing or the worst thing. And I'm like, it'll be a different thing to everyone that reads it. I hope you enjoy it. There's going to be a bunch of, there's going to be a bunch of mutants. Like,
listen, John did not help, or John, or what's his name, Jordan, or whoever's in charge of calling something a red issue didn't help that it was the last thing we got to see of it. And then it said, by the way, it's now pushed back a year. You gotta live with that final tease of, the level that it's on. But no,
I hope people
excited
enjoy it. I also want to say that, like, this one, to me, even back a year ago, a year and a half ago, whatever, the way that I conceived of this was more of like a complete arc than individual parts. So, like, the classic structure is still there. Like, it's still a monthly book for sure. But for me, I kind of wanted to thread the beats throughout the entire arc. So also be patient. I know people will read a first issue and then be like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And it's like, it's okay. I promise. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably not correct. You have to keep reading to find out.
It's a good teaser.
Well, we'll stop there for our questions, except for just to ask, hey, you've got those two. What else you got going on? What else are you working on? You have a Batgirl story for Future State that's out very soon, I believe.
Yes, I don't know when, because publishing schedules are very confusing to me. I'm just a little writing bridge troll. But I'm doing Batgirl's Future State for DC. That's a 2-part story. It will appear in the next Batman 2 and 4, I think. I like anthologies. I think they're really cool. So that's exciting. What else can I talk about? I think that's all I can talk about right now. I do have some other stuff cooking. So
nice.
That's exciting to hear.
All right.
That's exciting to hear. But what we have cooking right now is some questions from our audience. We put out a call on Twitter, and you're very popular. I don't know if you've picked up on that. So we had a lot of questions, and we've pared them down to just a handful. The first one comes from Asimov_fangirl, who asked a couple, but we're going to ask, if you could team up with an X-Man to help your creative endeavors, podcasting, creating a comic, etc., who would you choose?
Oh, that's such a good question. Also a great username.
Asimov Fangirl asks all of the best questions on all of the podcasts I listen to.
It's true.
And it's fantastic.
I would probably team up with Danny Moonstar, because she can actualize whatever's going on in my brain. I could see it. I'm actually weirdly not a super visual person when I'm writing. And so when the art comes in, it's a freaking delight to me. It's just great. But I'm like, to be able to see it projected and go, that works or that doesn't work right away is great. Also, she just seems like she's cool to hang out with. I don't know. She seems great.
She seems like she'd be a fun hang. She'd be fairly chill, but down for whatever.
Just as long as she's not like predicting our death or something.
No thanks. No thanks. But like, also, like, if someone was messing with you, she could like pull out their worst fear. Like, I feel like that's cool.
That is cool.
It'd be useful.
Also, she's a Valkyrie.
Yeah.
She is a Valkyrie. There's that part that she also is.
I haven't forgotten. People keep asking me questions online, and I'm like, no. Please, no, I only have 20 pages a month.
You mean Danny Moonstar, the character you've already written, you know a little bit about?
Who knew? No, to answer the question, yeah, Danny Moonstar. I would love to hang out with Danny Moonstar or Gabby, because I feel like she would just bring snacks to whatever's going on, and that's awesome. And Glob also would be another person who would make snacks. So.
Glob snacks are a true treasure, so I would want any snacks that Glob would make. Gabby, I feel like, would be too young and feral for me. Like she'd be too high energy. And I could I appreciate what you're doing, but also I want to just sit here.
I love it. It keeps me young. Although you have young children, so I, you know what that energy is like.
Mm.
It's a lot at all times. My oldest just turned 5 yesterday, and he does not have an off switch. So that's.
So you don't need a Gabby in your life.
I don't need a Gabby in my life. I do need a Robert Secundus, who asked, your first New Mutants issue marks, I think, the first major cultural shift in some established aspects of Krakoa. The original Krakoan approach to education has now changed. Why did you want your first story in the title to focus on education, and why did the previous model need to go?
So I think that, first of all, amazing question. For me, I wasn't trying to tear down the old style of it's been a year of Krakoan education. For me, what was important to kind of explore was, just because you download information to someone's brain doesn't mean that A, they know what to do with it, B, that it's refined in any sort of usable way, and C, that it solves any of their social problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I love the Matrix, right? He downloads Kung Fu into his brain and then he can Kung Fu. I'm like, your body doesn't necessarily know how to Kung Fu. You happen to be in a simulation, right? So I wanted to kind of play with the idea of socializing these feral children. So it's not necessarily, and not all of them are feral children too. And there are a couple of people who have been like, this person already knows how to do X, Y, and Z. Why are they in the book? And I'm like, because people help each other. If I know how to do something, I can help someone that doesn't know how to do it. And so the idea of, and for anyone who has ever also adopted a feral animal of any kind, you have to socialize them. You have to teach them how to be part of your community and how to work with the other people around them. And because, Krakoa is all about working together and interconnection, and how this is kind of the more harsh mercenary way of putting it, but how you're only as strong as your, the weakest link in the chain. For me, it's the nicer way of saying it is, you want to uplift everyone. You are only as happy as the saddest amongst you, and so you must make everyone happy. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with that. And education to me, learning how to refine your powers and be better at being mutants is really important. That's really super fun. It's fun to look at, and it's fun for them to do. But it also, this is something that will go forward into the book. This is not a spoiler, but, not everyone really understands how to play well with others. But when you have to see the consequences of not playing well with others right in your face, that shows you that, oh, these are other people too. I can't just get away with being, callous anymore. I have to worry about other people. And so, the first issue, I was like, we're going to do that through training because that's fun to look at. Also, because I want to see how many powers we can combine. Just wait until issue 2. There are more weird powers that they combine.
More wolves.
So excited about this.
More wolves, yeah. 25 wolves. Cosmer in particular is one that I really am very interested in how her powers combine with other people's.
I'm very excited that she's staying in the book. That was... I love her design. I think Flaviano did an incredible job with that.
I think that also her introduction, it's tragic, and I feel like it's so easy to let it be and that's sad, and now she's gone. I'm like, let's stay with it for a while. They brought her in, right? New Mutants is also, coming off of what Ed was doing, is a book about we welcome New Mutants into the island. Well, now they're here. What do you do with them? You can't just bring them onto the island. You have to deal with them. That's a really good question, though. What was the second part of the question? Why did the education have to go? It doesn't. It also still works. They're still downloading information to people's brains, and still, because that's cool. I would never want to get rid of that. If I could just learn a language like that, I would know every language on the planet.
Be pretty great.
All right. So we have a Christo, lots of numbers, but he doesn't seem to be a robot. Just seems to be a person whose username is first name lots of numbers. But they ask, how much of the history of these characters influenced your own work? Sometimes continuity mongering can be an impediment to new stories. So how do you decide the line between a nod to the past and making it your own, taking things in new directions?
That's a great question. This is something that I think everyone who writes licensed characters struggles with every day. And I in particular love doing homework, so I read a lot of the stuff that came before. For me, what I like to do is think of them as real people, not in that I believe they are living people, but the way that like our history, what has happened to us, influences everything we do, but we still surprise ourselves every day. And we still have to continue to live our lives, right? And so when thinking about these characters and thinking about the stories for New Mutants in general that have been told before, I try and kind of just like absorb it and then go, okay, but what are the stories that need to be told right now? And why do they need to be told through these characters? One of my kind of rules for writing licensed characters is the story that I tell with them has to be something that could only be told through them. I don't take my own ideas and then shove them into the story, because I can just go write my own creator-owned stuff. I don't need to do that. But when I get the opportunity to write, you know, a story with Danny Moonstar, with Karma, with, you know, Warpath, all these characters, I'm like, what makes them special? And that thing is going to be different for each creative team. You know, like what is important to me about a character might not be what's important to someone else when they're writing that character. So I can only kind of write out of my perspective. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I go, all right, here's the world that they are living in now. There are stories that would make sense for those characters in this second, you know. For the New Mutants in particular, I thought to myself, what are they doing right now? Like, you have this paradise or whatever, but what does that mean to someone, you know, who A, isn't used to paradise, but B, is kind of in that in-between age where it's like, well, we're not the X-Men. Some of us have been X-Men, but like, there's no X-Men right now. But we have this new island and a bunch of people running around who don't know, who are unsocialized feral cats. How do we... Who's going to take care of this? People are tearing up the lawn. Like, and to me, the characters on the New Mutants are the characters that go, well, we have a problem right in front of us. Let's solve it in a way that brings everyone together. They just always have been to me. Like, they're ride or die for each other. Like, for me, you know, I think back to, everyone thinks back to the Demon Bear saga, right? Like, that's just like a thing.
It's pretty good.
Phenomenal.
Pretty good.
Phenomenal.
I think it's number 3 on our list right now.
It is number 3 on your list right now. I know, because I listen to the show. But like, I think also, you know, I think back to that and the way that like they showed up in the hospital. Like, they didn't have to do that. Like, that's not a thing that like comics do, but like there they were. Like, that's what the New Mutants do to me. They're like, we're going to ride or die in the hospital. I think back to, you know, when they find Karma again after she's been gone and thought of dead, you know, for all this time. Like, what do? Like, immediately they, you know, they squat up and they're like, we'll go through time and space. Like, we'll do this. This is it. Like, we're bringing you home.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's who they are to me. And so I don't have to retell that story. What I have to do is go, all right, well, in this paradigm, what does that look like?
That's a interesting take on that. It's always nice to see how different people approach that very comics problem.
It's hard, right? Because, I mean, we always say in the room, we're like, we don't want to make comics about comics, but we do want to make sure that the cool stuff that was laid down, we carry forward.
I thought this was an interesting question. It kind of ties into what we were talking about here. At the Uncanny Bert asked, will we see more mutants questioning the direction of Krakoa, especially younger, more idealist ones? We saw Gabby do this and brought up the clone issue. Are we going to see more of that as we go forward?
I mean, that's the plan. It's not all going to be like, you know, this is a problem, but like, I think that younger people have a lot of questions. I think that's just that's the whole thing about being, well, forever. We all ask questions forever, but especially at when you're at that age where you're becoming super independent, you're like, well, why does it have to be this way? Or, this is all what you want, but what if I don't want that? And I definitely, we all have plans to do that across the books, but I definitely want to put a lot more of that into New Mutants, because I think that I personally love the Krakoan era, and I would love to live on Krakoa. But I feel like any new nation has, things about it that people are unsure about. And the way that you fix that and the way that you deal with that is by facing those questions head on instead of just like covering them over. And because what we're doing with the X-Line is so additive and so communal, like everyone wants to do that. We all want to be like, yeah, we also have these questions. We're figuring this out and we're showing you the process. This is how you become a people.
Nice.
I'll be excited to see.
Yeah.
We've got just two more from the Peanut Gallery. Neither of them about X-Men.
Okay.
It's about other things that you do. This first one comes to us from Hunter at X-Men But Gay, who is someone who I have recently found out was like childhood best friends with one of my college roommates, which is a weird thing to find out on Twitter.com.
It's a small world.
Great.
Very small world. But they ask, Jessica Jones playing with fire was one of my favorite audio experiences of 2020. What was it about JJ that led to Hellfire Club feeling like natural antagonists for her? And for people who don't know, Jessica Jones playing with fire was a book that you co-wrote with a bunch of people.
many incredible people. We got into a room together and we just started talking about cool stuff and Jessica Jones and Marvel stuff in general. And we wanted to make sure that there was a power level involved that was equal or greater to her, because she's a very powerful character. But we also wanted to make sure that it felt street level, because she's a very street level character. So we were like, no cosmic stuff that doesn't make any sense for her, like probably no ninjas, like any of that kind of stuff. Probably no major magic stuff. I mean, maybe like we toyed with it some. We toyed with some of the horror stuff too. But at the end of the day, Hellfire felt very, very, very grounded in a weird way. It's just like it's an actual location and it's a business, and that's what kind of makes it even worse. Is that that's believable. It had to be something that she could get, punch, but also that wouldn't solve the problem as well. So
nice.
Yeah, we wanted to be grounded, but also like, I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't read it, but the person she ends up punching, that's the wrong way to approach that person.
I'll tell you, this was a book about Jessica Jones going to the Hellfire Club, and then part of the mystery involving food service equipment with refrigeration and noise from that. And that got me personally way overthinking things.
We tried to make it feel like a real noir detective kind of like situation, while also just being completely, we were like, it's Marvel, let's really just be weird and throw in some red herrings and just go nuts.
That's good. The last question we have comes from Alex Tucker, who asks, Vita, which X-Men would you make a Batgirl?
Oh, a Batgirl specifically. Ooh, that's a good question.
A Batgirl, yeah.
Who would I make a Batgirl?
Who's gonna be a Who's the
Batgirl? Good amalgam like characters?
Yeah.
Do you remember the amalgam characters? Who would make a good Batgirl?
Dark Claw.
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, I love Lobo the Duck.
Lobo the Duck good. Lobo the Duck good.
Lobo the Duck good. Amazon was the best one though. Let's be real.
It was a mixed bag, that whole thing.
Not a huge fan of that specific creator, but I can understand the combination of Storm and Wonder Woman being a pretty good fit.
Yes, that is a good way to put that. Also, just the idea that Diana Prince ends up the Punisher somehow in that universe is really good. All right, but down to business. All right, which X-Men? That is a very good question. It would probably be one of the younger kids. My brain wants to say Armor, but I'm not sure if that's right. I feel like she'd make a pretty good one. Actually, you know who'd make a really good, like, Batgirl, but, like, the younger version of her is Karma. I think Karma would make a really good Batgirl.
Yeah.
She's kind of got the backstory built in and everything, but also, like, I don't know, man. She feels like a Batgirl.
She's a librarian. I mean, she's got some of the same things as Babs. I mean, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I would like to see her as Batgirl. There you go.
Well, I'll tell you, those are the questions that we had. Vita, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, letting me babble for an hour.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Hey, if people want to get in touch with you, see specifically like where they can find your work, where can they find your work besides New Mutants and Children of the Atom?
Where can you find my work? I mean, I don't know. Comixology. No, I'm on Twitter, so you can just bother me on Twitter. My username, handle, whatever, is @definitelyvita. That's also my
That's
Instagram.
Definitely it. Yes.
Man, it's been a long year, and we're only 12 season.
We're with you. It just started, and it's really long.
Oof. It's definitely the 11th March in a row. Like,
yeah.
It just feels like we're still in March 2020. But we're not, thank God. That's where you can find me. I write creator-owned stuff. If you like that kind of stuff, I've written books like The Wild and Submerged and Quarter Killer, which is a Comixology original. So check those out.
Yeah. They're all good. So you should go do that, folks. Hey, Adam, where can people find you online?
Guys, you can always follow me on Twitter @ArthurStacy. And Zach, where can people find the latest and greatest Comics XF stuff?
You can find the latest and greatest Comics XF stuff at Comics XF on Twitter. That's Comics X-Ray Foxtrot. It's Xavier Files. You can use the X and the F, and you put those at the end, and that's how it works. Also at comicsxf.com. We've got some fantastic stuff this week. A bunch of stuff about a bunch of different comics. Stuff about what Metallica album goes best with which X-Force team, which is just, I guess, a thing we do now.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of cool stuff coming. Some real cool interviews that we've got lined up soon. So y'all check that out. Also, make sure you check out our Patreon at patreon.com/comicsxf. It's great. I think this is the first time we've actually recorded since that went. No, it's the second time. Either way, the support that y'all have given has been absolutely phenomenal. All that money goes directly into our fantastic writers. And we're really, really excited about that. Writing about, cool stuff. So go check that out. One last time, I want to thank Vita Ayala for being on. Vita, thank you so much. It was great. It was a pleasure. Always is.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, next week, I don't have the list up, so I don't know what we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about something.
We'll
figure it out.
I don't have the list up either. I don't know.
Don't worry about it. We didn't need it. But until then, guys, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!